January 19th, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using the NinjaTrader 8 platform. There's only one piece of economic data that came out, which was right around 7 o'clock. That would probably have moved the markets, but as you can see, when it came out, it didn't really push the market one way or the other. Overall, it looks like things were kind of in a tight trading range down here. It created kind of this W formation, and then it rallied pretty hard for the rest of the day. So I'm going to get into the trades now. I didn't take any trades, but I saw some setups. So this is the pre-market. It looked like it fit in this channel pretty well, pretty tight. It hit the highs, pre-market highs, came down, sold off pretty sharply. And the first setup that I see is right here. Creates a new low. It creates a first entry short and creates a second entry short. But here, I was wondering but if this is going to get a rejection off the EMA. And when it actually created and confirmed a second entry short, I wasn't feeling too bad because this is your signal bar. It's too doji, as well as this is the first break of the green channel, so you're expecting another test of the lows. The problem was this signal bar wasn't very good, and I wanted it to come up and touch the EMA. On top of that, if you look at the timestamp, this is 6:30 and 39 seconds Pacific Standard. So this is 39 seconds into the trading day of regular hours. It feels very early. So for me to get a trade ready to go short, this has to be a pretty fantastic setup because I know usually in the very beginning of the day, first 5 minutes can be really whipsaw and choppy because there might be a lot of orders that people have placed that execute on the market open. Even though you can trade it in the pre-market, there's just a lot of things that can happen. A lot of orders can be stacked up and then released on the open. So I'm just reluctant to take this trade. Then prices continue moving, breaks out of the green channel, tests and makes a new low, and it falls into what I think is this yellow downward channel. It's kind of respecting the EMA. Unfortunately, I don't see any good clean setups because there's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. This is your signal bar for the second entry long. Technically, it made a new low, made a double bottom, came back up. This signal bar needed to be green, bullish, for me to even consider taking a long. And although it ticked one tick above, it closed below the open. So I didn't really like that. So there's no trade there. Technically, I have a first entry short, second entry short, also no real setup. I saw this as a new low, and this is a possible trade. So it's a new low, it's a first entry short pullback. Here, it hasn't created a second entry short, but it's about to. What I do like is this creates a key entry point. This is the top of the, well, it's bouncing off the top of the downward yellow channel, as well as there's an EMA rejection. The candle here is only about 6 ticks, so the risk is rather small. So I think the entry would have been one tick below this guy or at the same low and close. Looks like it would have worked out because you have just enough room for a quick scalp. Then it consolidates. It kind of starts twisting upwards. And here, I know the economic data, the consumer sentiment is coming out at around 7 Pacific Standard. So here, I'm just really wary and being careful not to take any trades. I kind of boxed this off to see where the economic data came out. Right around 7, I saw this flash up, bounce around, continue up, and then it created pretty much like these piano keys, as I like to call it, these big candles that are big bodies. And it's hard to trade this because you could get chopped up, so I don't trade it. Keeps chopping around, and this is about 5 minutes after the economic data, then it kind of trends downwards. I was wondering if there's some kind of support here. So it looked like it bounced. It creates a first entry short, and you technically have a second entry short here. So from new low, first entry short, second entry short, but this is really no setup here because it's far from the EMA. It's a decent signal bar, but I don't like that it kind of started at the bottom below the EMA and now it's closing above. I'd rather have the second entry short stay completely below the EMA, or if it stays completely above and I'm looking for a reversal. So here I'm not really sure what I'm looking for, so I just sat out. Prices then continue chopping. It falls into what I think is this big range because I saw this kind of a support or resistance being respected here. Some kind of support being respected here. You do have a new high, first entry long, second entry long. This would have been a good trade, except this is an inside bar. It's a decent signal bar, and it's coming off the bottom, but it's only the second touch. I needed, if this was a third touch, maybe there would have been a trade here, but also I don't like that the fact that it's inside bar. Perhaps if this is a smaller bar right here, maybe closed here, and this one came down and pushed back up, then I would know, it wasn't all within the range of this tiny little bar here. So here's a triple test, a quadruple test, but I'm not thinking of going short at all, even though it's a new low, first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short here. When you get it confirmed and it closed up here, you're definitely not thinking of going short, even though it's top of the range. It closed way up here, so it feels very risky. Flashes up, comes back down. I think I see a channel, so I drew this. Flashes up, and this is where I see another potential setup, but it's more of an almost setup. It's a new high, first entry long, pull back. Here, I'm wondering if it's going to create a second entry long because it looks like if it respects this and the next candle closes roughly about here, but bullish, then I would consider taking a trade. It flashes up, so this is just too big a candle. Is it almost set up? Is a third confirmation of this yellow channel, but it closed slightly below the EMA. So in order for me to get a trade ready, it had to have this candle, this signal bar had to have closed above the EMA and had a little bit of a body and closed bullish. But since it didn't, I had to wait for the next candle. I waited for this next candle and I waited for it to close, and it closed way up here. So definitely it's confirming second entry long, but I feel like the trade has been made. Here I'm thinking maybe there's a higher low, but I'd rather a higher low be bullish, but it's kind of bearish, so it closed down here. Now this candle, I would have considered taking a trade. So this is an almost setup because it confirms a second entry long. This is the higher low right here. So this next candle, unfortunately, didn't tick above this high here. So it looked like it got, stacked and pretty much snuffed right at the highs. If it ticked one tick above and looked the same way, I would have considered taking a trade. But since it closed at the high, it gave me a little bit of a pause because I'm not sure if it's going to chop sideways some more. It looked like it would have worked. And then prices continue moving up. It passes this overshoot, breaks down, and it looks like it's falling into this consolidation range. So you have a new high, first entry long, pullback, second entry long. You don't think, or I don't think of taking a second entry long here or even here, even though it's bouncing off the EMA, bouncing off the bottom of this range. It's just because this candle doesn't look very convincing. If it had closed more bullish, then maybe there's a trade there. Prices then continue moving. It does create this lower high. So it's a first entry long, second entry long. Second entry long here, it fails, but it's in this range. So if you're thinking it's probably just going to come back down here, this could potentially be a failed breakout, or it could be a breakout pullback. So it has a few things going on here that made me have to pause and think, because it confirms the second entry long. So you're thinking, okay, confirms the second entry long failure, but it's the first break of this yellow up channel, which has been, it doesn't fit the most clean, but it is pretty strong. So you think it might move back in. It also broke out of this range. So it could be a failed breakout. So even though it's a lower high, well, you don't know it's a lower high yet. Here, you know for sure it's a lower high, but you don't know if it's going to be a failed breakout and pull prices right back in. So that leaves me unsure. So I just had to pretty much leave it alone. I also didn't have this green channel drawn at the time. Prices then continued moving down. And I just want to state that if I did have this green channel drawn at the time, it's only a second touch confirmation. It fits nicely below here, but not so much here. It only touches twice. You could argue for a third time, but here definitely it just feels like I'm not 100% sure what's going on. It's a very strong bullish move up. Suddenly the expected reversal feels a little bit early, so I'm thinking it might easily come back in here. So I thought it could have gone both ways. Prices then continue moving down. Here I see a new low here. This is actually the lowest low. First entry short, pull back. Second entry short. Second entry short, failure. So I thought this is a possible trade. It's a little aggressive though, because this failure happens right at the end where it pokes one tick above and then closes and matches pretty much this candle's high. But since it did close one tick, close at the high, but it did move one tick, there's a potential trade here. I just wanted this second entry short to actually be, this big one, first entry short up here, second entry short up here, then failure. But since it started below and ended above, I wasn't 100% sure. So, this could be another bullish push to test this yellow channel because we one leg down. This could be the first attempt up, potentially a second attempt up, or just one leg down, first attempt up. I wasn't sure. Plus, the size of this pullback is relatively large in proportion to this big move up. Had this leg been tinier, then I would have felt, okay, maybe there's another push up, because I thought this could be one leg down push up and then potentially another leg down. Turns out would have worked. And prices continue chopping, goes into this orange channel. I don't see any good setups. There is a new high, first entry long. Technically, you have a second entry long, but this is your signal bar. It's not a very good signal bar to go long on. You could argue that there is some kind of triple test, I guess, but it looks a little noisy right here. So I could easily see this as one touch, and then this is a second touch. The prices continue moving up. It goes into this green channel, breaks out, has an overshoot, creates an almost matching overshoot on this side, pushes up, tries to test the high, fails, comes back down. Technically, have a new low, first entry short. And you get a second entry short here, but it's too far away, so it's definitely no trade. I do see a first entry short, second entry short, potentially a second entry short failure. But I thought if you took this trade, it's a possible trade. It's a bounce off the EMA, potentially bounce off this yellow channel, which was a trend line at the time, how I drew it, because I actually had this a little lower in here. You could argue there's enough room to at least push for a scalp. So I didn't want to take this trade, but I could see it being a possible trade though. Looks like it flashes up, it would have worked. Now it kind of starts this big rally that I saw earlier, or that I pointed out earlier. So you don't really get any second entries, you get a bunch of first entries. And I saw when this was starting to go up with these tiny candles with very, very small corrections, I tried to find a channel and look for any possible entries. But since the push up is so strong, but the candles are so small, I was a little hesitant because I wasn't sure if at any point it would break down. Plus, it's so far from the EMA. Ideally, this trend channel going up would have candles hugging both the EMA and this bottom of the channel, but it didn't. So I kind of had to pretty much leave it alone until something really pristine showed up. And it doesn't quite show up because you have an overshoot and it dwelled outside for a while. So at this point, I dragged this kind of up here so it fit a little bit better, but then I have a lot of space down here. So I gave me pause. Prices then continue moving up. And it's just like if you were able to get on this, you would probably have been able to ride this up pretty well, especially if you had a runner. I did see a new high here. You have a first entry long, pullback. This creates a hidden second entry long, goes down one tick, and pushes right back up to the high. So it's first entry long, pullback, second entry long, all within this candle is a second entry long. The thing I didn't really feel comfortable with is there's an overshoot here. So I'm thinking there's going to be one push up and then potentially another leg down and create maybe a matching overshoot on this side. And so that gave me a little bit of pause because this could turn out to be a failed second entry long. But the trend and the overall bias of the day has been so strong. So knowing that, I just still wasn't sure which one was going to dominate over the other. So it's been kind of a long day up to this point, and I haven't taken a trade, so I wasn't really eager to try to push for anything. Looks like it would have worked. Pushes up, and then this is another overshoot, and this is time it does actually fail through the other side. You have first entry long, pull back second entry long, but this wasn't any kind of signal bar to make you get ready for a trade. And then it flashes down. So here it looks like if you would have gotten about, you're going for a very, very conservative tight 1 point, you might have just gotten it. If not, you probably would have gotten stopped out. When prices then continue chopping, it falls into this consolidation area. So it's like a new high, first entry long, pullback, second entry long. This second entry long, since it looks like it's range bound, there's not enough room to scalp out at this point. So I'm just very careful. You also have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. You could argue that's a second entry short failure, but you don't really quite get the failure until this candle where it's proving it's moving back up. But in the real time, you see this, and you see kind of this indecision candle near the top of the range. So it's definitely not an area that you feel like I should really definitely be taking a long. But you don't want to take a short too because it'd be counter trend to the overall bias of the day. So it just tells me that I just need to sit tight and wait. Prices then continue moving up. I don't see anything particularly that I like because there's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. But if you had this channel drawn like this looks dicey. So you'd wait for the next candle because it closed bearish. Here it bounces up. So depending on how aggressive you would have been, you could have probably put an entry way up here, one tick above, or one back here. And here it looks like you would have gotten filled. You'd be sitting and sweating through this, still sweating through this, and then this candle likely would have stopped you out if you kept your stop one tick below this double bottom. Then it would have flashed through. And if it didn't stop you out on this candle, for sure one of these guys would probably have stopped you out unless you kept this really, really big range or really, really big stop loss, which is dangerous. Prices then continue moving. It's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. This candle does not tell me to go short, or it doesn't give me any good ideas or clues to go short, especially with the price action getting pretty sideways. Same thing here. It's a new high. It's a first entry long, second entry long. You do have two legs back. This is the signal bar. You could argue there is a triple test, maybe from here to 3. But I like to count it where I started the range, and I started the range here, so I only have technically 1 and 2 tests. You could try to squeeze out 1 test, 2 tests with 1 candle separation, but I kind of don't like that. Since it's so tightly close together, I like very distinct, a couple of candles between each test. Then prices continue moving. Now it's getting too late in the day. It's too late in the day for sure to try to take a trade, even though the last 10 minutes you get this crazy oscillation. And even then, in the last 10 minutes, I was weary because you had a very strong push up. There's probably people are doing some profit taking. So it could cause a sell off, and I didn't want to be a part of that. Plus, in the last 10 minutes, if you make a mistake, it's hard to recover from that, and you enter the day or end the day with just kind of a loss. And I felt like I just didn't want to do that. So that's how I saw the charts today. There weren't too many setups, but I think there was probably one potentially good setup here that would have been worthwhile. And maybe this one, but you had to been a little aggressive and been a way better chart reader than me, which isn't that difficult. So, I mean, if you were able to catch this one, this probably would have made your day for this big push up. And so, pretty much how I saw it. Hopefully that was helpful.